Okay, welcome everyone. This is Mark Hand. I'm the director of the GreenGov Council, and we have Matt Reese, assistant director of the GreenGov Council, and we want to give you an update on where we are with the council activities and the Commonwealth leading by example. It looks like we are now getting a number of participants joining, so that's great. And I guess the goal here is we want to present where we are with the council and give you all an opportunity to ask questions. And so there'll be different pauses along the presentation so that we can see if there's any questions from the group. And you can just unmute your mic at that point and ask the question. You can, I guess, type it into the chat, but with looks like a relatively small group, so I think you can feel free to unmute and do it that way as well. So if you want to go to the next slide, we can kind of get rolling here. So for maybe some that are new to the GreenGov Council, the GreenGov Council was formed by the Governor's Executive Order 2019-1, and it set Pennsylvania's first climate goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 26% by 2025. And then the big goal, 80% reduction by 2050. So that's in the executive order for a goal for Pennsylvania. And that's the basis of this goal. And then we will kind of go into the agency lead by example items here in a minute. So the GreenGov Council is co-chaired by secretaries of DGS, DEP, and DCNR. And so we meet with the delegates of these agencies every other week and keep us on our mission and focused on progress for agencies. Next slide. And so what our mission is what Matt and I are looking to do through GreenGov is to encourage incorporation of sustainable practices in the Commonwealth's policy planning, operations, and procurement and functions. That's right out of the executive order. And it really is a continuous improvement process. We don't always know what the right way to approach some things. So we'll try a technique or two and see if it works, and then we'll kind of refine it over time. And so those that have been tuning in, you can kind of see our progression over this past year and where some of our projects are going here in the future. Next slide. So the Commonwealth, the lead by example goals for the Commonwealth are to reduce energy consumption 3% per year. And we are looking to replace this state passenger fleet with battery electric and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles by 2025. To the tune of 25% of the state passenger fleet. We are procuring renewable energy for 40% of the Commonwealth's annual electricity use at a minimum. That's our goal there. And we have a green building goal, which is to build new buildings and major renovations to high performance standards. And we'll get into all these here in a moment. But those are the four. So we have the greenhouse gas goal, the overarching goal, the greenhouse gas reduction goal, and then we have these four primary goals that are Commonwealth agency goals. Next slide. So I guess this is a first pause if there's any questions about just the overall executive order in general or what our goals are at this point. Okay. So this is still a pretty small group. There's 25 of us at this point, so feel free to unmute and ask questions at these different moments when we have these pauses.
Mark,
yep.
This is Paul. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
About so these were goals that you just put out for 2025, and is there a pathway that has been designed from 2025 to 2050?
No, you mean as far as how we're going to, after 3% reduction to 2025, and then after that, to 2050, no, that's going to be, um, a future progress that we have to achieve. I mean, we're really working on making sure that we meet these 3% goals and to get, meet the primary lead by example goals for the 2025 first. But yeah, we need to definitely work forward on how to meet that larger goal of 80%. And I think some of that comes from just gaining some momentum. And that's kind of what this, the interim, the shorter goal is to try to position the Commonwealth to gain momentum in these areas.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So, where we are with the renewable energy goal, the Commonwealth currently procures Green E certified renewable energy certificates, and these are various. It's a lot of wind from I believe from the Midwest, and so they're really out of state. Most of them, or if not all of them, are out of state renewable energy resources, but they're Green E certified, and we purchased this. For those that maybe were on the call and in the meetings last year, we had a procurement for Green E certified for a couple of years of a contract. And so this is kind of how we're meeting the 40% reduction goal for the next couple of years. And, there'll be changes to this in the future, and we'll be talking about that at another time. But there's upcoming changes, but this is currently how we're meeting that renewable electricity goal. Next slide. So this is how we're achieving the 3% energy reduction goal right now. As you may recall, we are using Energy Cap, which tracks our electricity, natural gas, and steam meters that we pay in the Commonwealth. And you can kind of see it, give you a little bit of time to digest this table here. But we have over 8,000 known meters, and this year we're up to 81%, and actually probably towards the end of the year here, we'll probably be closer to 85% of validated meters, which essentially means that we have confidence that the individual meters that the Commonwealth is paying for these energy bills is reporting clearly, and that we have confidence in what the meter is telling us. So last year, and we don't have this on here, but last year we were proud to, talk about the fact that we met 2.9% energy reduction in the first year of GreenGov, and we had validated last year 61% of the meters. And so over the course of this last year, we had set out a goal to achieve 85% meter validation, and it's quite a feat, and a remarkable process to get all of the utility bills reporting cleanly, and it's going to be continuously one of our goals. So we're up to 81% and probably 85% by the time we get our annual report together, and it's looking like about 3.7% energy savings for this fiscal year that we'll be reporting on. And of course, we don't know exactly how we obviously think that there's energy efficiency that contributes to this, but certainly there's going to be a COVID piece to this, and we haven't really gotten into the interpretation or the data analysis to kind of to flesh that out more. But just to say that we are looking good for 3% reduction, and I'm sure at least part of that is COVID. And, again, this is reporting fiscal year 2019 and 2020, so it ended on June 30th for this report. And so you're certainly going to see the spring where there was some different energy usage going on in the Commonwealth. Next slide. So last year we had reported, we basically our high performance buildings goal is to meet or exceed ASHRAE 90.1 2016, which is, well, 10% over ASHRAE 90.1 2016, which is 10% better than ICC 2018 code, just for reference. And so we built this into a number of projects last year with help of DGS's Public Works and our Bureau of Real Estate in a lease facility. And so we had, I think we reported about 12 or 13 buildings that were working towards that high performance goal. And a couple of things we want to work on this year is develop the measurement and verification process to reinforce that we are in fact meeting this goal. And so as these buildings get finalized, we would like to develop some sort of validation for this process to show everyone that, that this is being achieved. And we also, of course, want to go beyond the standard with other high performance criteria such as LEED, Green Globes, Energy Star, maybe Passive House. So these are things that are in the works for us to maintain and update the high performance building criteria. Next slide. And then so we have the electrification goal of 25% of the passenger fleet. And last year in the annual report, we projected that was about 990 units, units being vehicles that we would need to convert by 2025 to meet this goal. We are in the process of working with PennDOT and our DGS Bureau of Vehicle Management to see if that the projection is going to change. So last year it was 990 units. As the passenger fleet changes over time, that number, the overall number, could go up or down. Certainly the fleet mix is changing, and so that's going to change the overall goal. But what this is showing is that, Matt and I are trying to figure out what it's going to take for us to build out the infrastructure and the units to meet the goal, and what would be a reasonable process and year-over-year development to meet this goal. And you can see in 2020, it's kind of a placeholder. We don't know for sure that the number is 0 in this case, but we know it's going to be low because, frankly, again, COVID had an impact on vehicle purchases. We know this. So we're working on getting the new numbers for the annual report, knowing that 2020 is likely going to be a low year, and so we really need to work over time to build the fleet at an increasing rate, because of the loss in this year. And you can go to the next slide. And Matt and I see that, and the GreenGov Council see that this is the charging plugs. So essentially charging infrastructure that's needed. And you can see the peak needs to come before happens the year before the peak of the vehicles. So essentially, we want the chargers in place so that when the vehicles are purchased, they have a place to plug in. We're kind of looking at this as pool vehicles, and we're looking at having our one plug per vehicle as a standard for right now, especially in this early adoption. We realize there's other ways to do this, but for simplicity, that's kind of how we're looking at it in this early stage. And next slide, I guess. And any questions there? That's a lot for our goals. I'm sure there's questions about that.
Hi, Mark. It's Peter Boger. I had 2 questions. One, do you all have a calculation if you reach the 25% electrification of the state's fleet, what that actually does in terms of greenhouse gas, total reduction in greenhouse gas emissions? And then the second question was, you said that this year the 3.7% energy reduction is some mix of COVID plus energy efficiency. Do you all have like a plan in place to get to those 3% energy efficiency? Is there like some laid out kind of tracking plan to get within each of the agencies down 3% every year, or is it just up to each individual agency to figure out how to try to achieve that?
I guess I'll tackle your last question first. So the 3% goal is enterprise-wide. So not all agencies necessarily need to achieve the 3%. It's the collective 3% is what we're looking for. And certainly Department of General Services, through our guaranteed energy savings performance contracting, they're constantly looking for more projects. I mean, there's a big chunk of energy savings we can achieve by working through our GESA mechanism to save energy. But there's other ways to do it as well. So it's a combination of DGS and the agencies working on projects together, and it's also encouraging agencies to find ways to save energy in their facilities on their own, and we can talk about that more through the GreenGov checklist.
And this is Matt, and I just want to note that every year we as a DGS has been delivering millions of dollars of Guaranteed Energy Savings Act projects, and where those projects are rolled out in the facilities that are specifically affected by those upgrades, we can directly look at the meters associated with those facilities and see a direct apples to apples comparison in the energy drop associated with the delivery of the performance project. So that's a great way, and a real, like I said, an apples-to-apples measure of the performance of a facility prior to a guaranteed energy savings project, and then directly after, to show the overall energy reduction for those, and then also the aggregate of all of our meters as a Commonwealth.
Yep, and then I guess the next question was, do we have I think the question was, do we have the modeling for greenhouse gas reductions as we meet the 25% electrification goal? We don't have that modeling, but I think we could probably pull that together, relatively easily, because our Bureau of Vehicle Management has an idea of like we're essentially targeting a certain type of vehicle, pool vehicle, for this first fleet, and they know how, essentially the size of the vehicle, how much gas they use in general. So I think we could get to that number and talk about what that transition would be. It's certainly, I don't have it offhand, but it's certainly possible to do that. Maybe we can talk about that for the annual report. It's a good point.
Hi, Mark. It's Steve Krug. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So you reported the energy use, not the tons of carbon being used by the departments?
Yeah. Matt, do you want to go back to the energy slide? Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Did I see that right? So if they're using green energy, even though they're using, do I have that right? That's in meter status, and energy savings was in what?
Well, it would be millions of BTUs.
Yeah.
And then the savings it's their electricity, natural gas, steam meters that are reporting collectively over last year compared to this year, fiscal year.
Does the goal say energy use, or does it say carbon or greenhouse gas reduction?
Well, the goal is 3% energy reduced per year. The big goal for Pennsylvania is the greenhouse gas goal. So we do work to translate this into greenhouse gas emissions. We can do that. We don't have it on this table. As you can see here, we're still, one of the things that we're working on is, like I said, we went from 61% of meters validated to 81% of meters validated, which means that we're still kind of building.
Yeah, we're still building our universe.
Yeah.
So to speak. Although we will be able to, I'm sure and in the past we've extrapolated what would be the direct carbon savings associated with this MMBTU of energy. So, it's a little bit of a mixed bag because not all of it is the same energy in this case. So this is the aggregate of, as Mark said, the electric, natural gas, and steam. So, we do get a little bit more detailed reporting, as with our partnership with PSFEI, but we're not. This is just this isn't the finalized version yet. This is just a little sneak peek as far as where we are as hitting the 3% reduction goal.
It looks great that you got more verification. That's a big step. And I guess the executive order says energy savings, not greenhouse gas reduction, is my question.
Under that goal, yes.
Okay.
And ultimately, we want to be, I'm sure everyone wants us to be tracking carbon. And I guess the point is, I think we will get there. It's just, I think every year we're sort of building this foundation, and it's a lot of meters, and it's, we also, in the future year, we plan, hopefully with a budget that's working for us, we can add a phase 2, or we can add other fuels so we can track a larger universe of our energy footprint as well.
I think it's worth noting here too that I'm pretty sure, and this is likely a little bit dated news because with COVID in here and we've not been, circles have been diminished. But in any case, I believe that last year we were only one of 3 states that were benchmarking our energy use, or setting toward the path of benchmarking our energy use. The other 2 being Colorado and California.
Great progress you guys are making.
Yeah. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I think there was nothing. It was also state of Washington. So. Okay.
Any other questions about the goals and where we are with them? And we can move on to Matt's piece of this.
Hey, Mark, it's Dave Gelman. Quick question. I know it's a level of complexity you guys don't have to deal with, but it's one I'm figuring you're probably thinking about, which is as you think about medium and heavy duty electric vehicles in the fleet, do you at least have a way to get credit for that? If you're putting electric vehicle infrastructure out there for a given fleet, well, that might allow them to maybe consider getting an electric shuttle. I mean, those are at least somewhat readily available. It's not like you're trying to make somebody get an electric dump truck, which may not exist yet, but just wondered if you've thought ahead about the whole, medium and heavy duty side of things, even though I know, your goal is pretty explicit that it's the passenger fleet.
Yeah, I mean, our goal of the passenger fleet is quite a bit to bite off, and it's going to take a large effort to reach that 990. I think that I agree though with you that medium and heavy duty has a larger carbon impact. I mean, certainly, and you can see that in the numbers as well. It's just, we're trying to work on getting electrification in the passenger fleet first. I think as we in our checklist, we're trying to encourage agencies to look at those other vehicle types, and I think we will try to figure out a way to account for it in the future. They're just at this point, it's just they're not being purchased at this point. We are trying to encourage agencies to look at them for sure.
Yeah, I just thought maybe if you'd figured out even an internal exchange rate where if somebody gets an electric shuttle, they get 3 credits toward that light duty passenger fleet requirement or something. Even something like that, just because those vehicles be a whole lot more valuable as far as greenhouse gas reductions.
It's an interesting point, and thought about that.
Well, as Mark had mentioned, I'm sorry.
This is Mark Garlicki from Penn State Facilities Engineering Institute. Hi, Mark. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Mark.
I just wanted to mention from a PSFEI standpoint, we do encourage the agencies to get or install EV charging stations with our GESA projects. And I just heard back quickly from Kurt Homan, who kind of heads that up. He says most agencies do that. And so this is great collaboration between GreenGov, Sustainability Institute, and other agencies, and of course PSFEI. So, I mean, I just wanted to throw it out there that, you know, PSFEI is trying to help with the GreenGov checklist, with education on high performance buildings, with the GESA projects. So, again, just for anyone who's listening, the agencies out there, we're willing to help and lend a hand where we can. So, if we can help in any other ways, just reach out to us. So thank you, Mark and Matt. I just wanted to quickly say that.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mark. I think that brings up a next section too. Mark, you mentioned the GreenGov agency certification checklist, and so I'll get into a piece covering this. So this agency certification checklist is set forth within the executive order that we create a checklist to gauge the performance and participation of agencies. And we have roughly 30 agencies in total. This is the second iteration of the checklist, so second year. These checklists were due on October the 9th. We received all of them. Again, mentioned we had 100% participation, and they will be posted on our webpage, presumably. I mean, it could be any day now, but I would assume that they'll be up there by the end of the week, and you'll be able to view the 2019 checklists for agencies as well as the 2020. So, and be able to see the difference and view them side by side and see the score differences, which is really neat to see as we go forward. But back to what the checklist is, it's really, as it says here, a menu of measures and strategies for conservation and sustainability, and it really it spans through all Commonwealth government operations. So from energy conservation to the electric fleet, and as you can see that our four main goals are within four really large areas of our operations. So with that, and also the list is very suggestive too. So as Mark was saying, that it's we use the list to steer agencies in the direction that we'd want to go. So more points for delivering an EV charging station, or and even more for delivering multiple charging stations. Points for delivering an EV vehicle, and more points for delivering a host of EV vehicles. So those are just two examples of how we use it as a suggestive tool as well to steer where we'd like to be, and ultimately bring down our carbon consumption or output. So this 2020 checklist, it expanded a little bit. I think I just touched on that a bit, where I said the opportunity to deliver points for one EV vehicle versus multi-EV vehicles, or EV vehicles that would be 25% of your passenger fleet. So that's where we expanded. Last year's checklist was 70 measures. This year we have 84. Really, there's not necessarily new areas in the checklist, but we've just expanded to give more bites at the apple, so to speak, for participating agencies. And again, I know this is really small print here, but this isn't meant to really get into the details here, but the point of this slide here is to show that we had 100% participation, which we're very proud of. Our highest score this year is 96%, which is Department of Banking and Securities, with an overall average score of 61%. Next, we have average checklist scores by category, which is nice to see, but I guess really, I don't know that I really needed this slide, but it's because of the next slide, where we compare the last year's performance to this year's performance based on category. So as you can see here, each category has had a small uptick, which we view definitely as indicative of our programs and efforts directly engaging agencies to with the GreenGov goals and how to deliver them within their business areas. So then, as you can see here at the bottom, the 2019 overall average score was 53%, and at 2020, we're a slight uptick to 61%. But we certainly have far more to go. And this next slide is basically what measures, and although it is fun to see what the top 10 highest performing are, really the top 10 lowest are what really drives our program going forward. So with the top 10 lowest measures, we've identified areas that we need to pick up, and basically that helps create our program plan for the next year going forward. And I know there's a lot of information on this slide and the last, and I jumped through that very quickly, but this slideshow will be available to view and reference on our GreenGov website after the presentation. So at any time, anybody can go and take a look and compare this year's this public presentation to public presentation that we had, believe back in May, and then also in December prior to that. So in any case, I don't know if anybody has any questions in regard to the checklist.
That was very interesting, Matt, to see the highs and the low categories. This is Steve Krug again.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty neat, and it's you see that they're all over the place as far as program area as well. So, which brings up a nice thing too, is like I said, we'll use these low measures and the high measures to a degree too, because that's areas that we could maybe expand a little bit in the highest performing measures, or to get a little bit deeper, or require a little bit more involvement in those areas, so that we can get to affect the scores later. And then also the lowest measures is obviously ones that we work with our focus groups, which brings up the next segment here is and if there's no more questions, if anybody else has any questions, sorry, jump ahead there. But we've developed 6 focus groups, as you can see here, and really what these are interactive forum groups that any agency can participate in as they see fit and as their business needs to participate in these. And these were put together based on the need of assistance in areas directly related to the checklist, and then therefore the overall GreenGov goals. So utility management, and Mark touched on that a little bit with our Energy Cap program and our data benchmarking associated with that, the delivery of electric vehicles and charging stations to support them, high performance construction and leasing specifications, sustainability teams, and also known as small agency operations. Basically, this one was pooled. It was developed because small agencies don't have the same massive footprint, both within as concerned with fleets of facilities and also fleets of vehicles that the larger agencies do. So they kind of get lost in the wash, so to speak, a little bit. So this is a forum specifically for them, and help they're a little bit nimble operation as well, so they could roll out a policy or a plan or a program within their operation far easier than a large entity or a large agency that has thousands of employees. Green facility management, which really takes a look at high performance and ways that we could better our maintaining of the fleets of facilities that we currently have, and then also products and materials, which covers environmentally preferred products and procurement, as well as recycling, and develop a more robust and comprehensive recycling program for all agencies within the state. So next, we're going to get into each one of these focus groups a little bit and cover a little bit of the program client plans within them, and what we look to do with them. Here in this slide here and the next slide give an overview of each one of these focus groups. I have to say the meetings for these are internal, so I apologize for that. But this would be more or less a reference slide as you take the look at, if you were to reference this presentation or the slideshow via our website afterwards. And then we'll also get into, focus group utility management. As Mark had mentioned before, last year we were at a 61% meter verification for all of our utility meters. This year we're currently at 81%, very close to our 85% goal, based on information that we're receiving now from DGS Procurement, and then also our partner on this with Energy Cap and Penn State Facilities Engineering Institute, is we believe we're going to hit that 85% likely by the end of the month, even by the time that we're ready to wrap up the energy spend for the year and get ready to put that information into the GreenGov annual report. Again, here's a chart showing the energy cap meters verified by year and how we go forward. The goal is to have really the full program area, the full of 8,400 meters reporting next year. It lists 95% here because having this many meters across the Commonwealth, there's always a certain degree of them or a certain percentage of them that are in flux, meaning that meters change. Some, there's always some move of that. So really, and I think I have to alter this, but for our annual report, but message from DGS Procurement is they consider 97% would be the the top of what we'll achieve. So this just shows the as we've reported and attained them over time. The next slide here is basically these are energy conservation measures taken directly from the GreenGov certification checklist that are directly applicable to the utility management focus group. So there's overall 11 applicable measures. These are the 10 lowest performing. And again, what this will do will drive our program plan going forward with this focus group. So based on these low measures, and now we know what areas we need to focus on going forward to have the most impact and for success. All right, brings up. Now I know I'm going pretty quickly through this. There's a lot of information, but I don't know if anybody has any questions in regard to the focus group for utility management.
Will the energy cap, this is Krug again, also have square footage so you can see building energy usage?
We are working on that. We don't have all of it in there to achieve the EUI, but agencies are diligently inputting information, not necessarily into energy cap, but we have a more robust overall facility tool that will cover both owned and leased facilities. It's an IBM product called Tririga, of which we're implementing, and it will contain basically all of our square footage, and that will directly be able to be linked to energy cap as well for our EUI. Yeah, thanks for asking. That's a great question.
That'll be a good scorecard metric for everybody to see.
Yeah, actually, we have that on the scorecard. Is that have people have agencies entered their building square footage for? I think there's 2 bites at the apple. One is all of their facilities within the DGS IBM Tririga program. Okay, next we have focus group electric vehicles and EV charging. We briefly touched on this prior. The goal, based on 25% of our passenger fleet, would be roughly 990 units. We've just been working with our Bureau of Vehicle Management to have a reassessment for this year for our overall participation and our overall delivery that we've achieved for this year. We don't expect it to be high, but anyways, that'll go directly into our annual report. The purpose of this, really the purpose of this focus group is to aid in the delivery of projects for EV charging stations, which I'll get into next. Though with COVID shutdowns and likely some low budgets coming forward and not a lot of resources to deliver these, what Mark and I came up with is a plan to basically get together project scoping with our client agencies to identify ideal locations for the delivery of the EV charging projects. So as funds become available, we're able to have all the project specifications ready to go and really get on it, when the time is right. Using in-house staff and in-house expertise as far as through the DGS Energy and Engineering offices. Next is the GreenGov checklist items directly associated with the delivery of EV and EV charging. So this is, you can see, we have a lot of low performing on this, and it's just due to due to two things. Number one, COVID, but then also the slowdown of the markets. Really, it's I think that COVID has set back manufacturing for EV vehicles probably a year. Hopefully, it's not longer than that. And then of course our goal is the chicken and the egg here. Whereas what comes first? Well, it's the charging infrastructure. We wouldn't want to deliver an EV vehicle until we have a charging infrastructure to support it. So, but there's a funding issue. So again, this links back to our project scoping documents, where we want to identify those areas to deliver key projects for charging once the funds become available. And you can see that basically the idea here is to develop that infrastructure, and that's what we'll be diligently working on within the next year. Next focus group is green construction and leasing specifications. Set forth in the executive order is a standard construction spec to deliver a 10% better energy savings over ANSI ASHRAE IES standard 90.1.2016. We'd like to do better than that. And really what this group is aiming to do is really create a project delivery pathways document, sort of a handbook or guidebook for all agencies to use to help them in identifying a capital project, valuing that capital project, getting that value on a budget bill. If anybody's familiar with the state system, we cannot deliver a project greater than $400,000 without legislative authority. So, and that legislative authority, that has to be in a governor's budget book approved by the legislature to proceed on. So, in order to do that, we must adequately get out in front of the project. So once a project's identified, we must identify, we have to put together a pretty good guesstimate as far as the cost associated with that, especially considering that if you identify a project, you get onto the budget bill, it may be several years for not only that bill to be introduced, that you have the authority to spend on it, but by the time that bill is introduced to when that project comes up for construction, so to speak. There's a time frame in there. So one of the issues that we've had is that we've had difficulty with doing those time delays with projects being underfunded to begin with. Not a good boat to be in, let alone to add in the extra complexity of having high performance on top of it. And high performance buildings are certainly worth it. I mean, they're hugely valued. We save in our operational costs for years that they're in service. In the Commonwealth, we use buildings with, I think the average is about 81 or 82 years. So it's a long time, and it's a long return on investment when you have when you have a high performance building. In any case, the idea is to develop a guideline and pathways so that we can more adequately deliver high performance buildings. Secondly, in the second realm of this is a lease. Approximately half of the Commonwealth's square foot footprint is leased space. And with this, we've entered into a small contract funded by DEP to help the GreenGov and the DGS Bureau of Real Estate work with lessors to identify high-performance lease strategies going forward so that we can provide mutual savings for everybody involved. And it's been a really nice initiative. We have a pilot we'd like to put together where it would affect leases over 20,000 square feet. So it'd be like our large master leases. We're looking forward to this. It's a great step forward. It's like I said, it's mutually beneficial not only for the Commonwealth but also for the lessor. So, when energy is saved, everybody wins. So, next is the GreenGov checklist measures that are directly linked to the leasing and construction specifications. And with that, I don't know if there's any more questions in regard to these three focus groups.
Hi, it's Steve again, Steve Krug. So on high performance buildings and DGS, you've been working great together. And they have a fantastic database, eBuilder, that tracks all their activities. Do we have any metrics on how many buildings per year that they are contracting or designing, and how many are going green in any measure?
Not currently. We did before. We're working with Public Works to put together that rundown, so to speak, so that we can put that in our annual report. But with the slowdown there's been a couple of things happen. Obviously, there's been a slowdown of projects, and with COVID, but also there's been a new director take over at DGS, and we've been working with him pretty intensely to help deliver this this high performance building delivery guide. So with that, we aim to not only match the set forth goal of the 10% savings over the ANSI ASHRAE, but to go even greater than that. So that's all in development right now. I think that if you consider basically, this is one area that's taken probably this and the EV charging have taken the biggest hit with like the COVID and the slowdowns. View it as sort of like a buy year almost, but it doesn't mean that we're not doing a lot of work behind the scenes though to kind of tee up the ball, for success for the following year. But that's a great question, Stephen. I appreciate that. So with that being said, I think Mark's going to take over now. We have 3 more focus groups to cover.
Yep. So we have about 13 minutes left, and I'll try to keep this rolling so we have time for questions at the end. So focus group, our products and materials / recycling focus group. Our goal with this focus group really is to revise and modernize our existing management directive 205.22, which sort of sets the roles of DGS and DEP and how we work together and what's occurring with recycling in the state. And it's, the recycling market has changed, and we need to reflect that in a modernization of how we're working together. So that's one of the big goals that hopefully we can get to later in 2021. We're also looking to the bottom bullet here is expand environmentally preferred products and procurement. Our Bureau of Procurement's been great to work with. They've gone into eMarketplace and started to modify their procurement lists so that people can search by a number of environmental certifications, and they're kind of getting on some of those areas so that we can actually be greener on the front end in our purchase. And so we're working on the front end and the recycling end in this focus group. And this is a fun group to work with. And you can go to the next slide, you can see one of the projects we're working on here. So one of the things we want to do is develop a kiosk, recycling kiosk for state agency facilities. One of the comments we got from a lot of agencies is they just aren't aware of what's going on with recycling in the state or in the Commonwealth, and it just seems like recycling's kind of not going well. And so one of the things we really identified is there needs to be a lot more education and awareness about the existing recycling program and the opportunities in the Commonwealth, and connecting. And and we need to get to the point where we're supporting local recycling industries with clean product streams, and these are some of the goals that we're working on. So we're working to develop these kiosks that can be put into Commonwealth agency facilities, and it'll be a sort of a public piece so you can kind of get a feel for what we're doing firsthand. Next slide. And then here's our corresponding GreenGov checklist measures, and you can kind of see where these fall. And you can just get a look at the types of criteria: green cleaning, recycling program that incorporates food waste, things like that, things that we want to be working on this coming year. Next slide. So the fifth focus group is green facility management, and this really is essentially a place where our facility managers in the Commonwealth can collaborate on energy efficient building discussions and operations. We'd like to develop a comprehensive operations manual over time with the expertise that we have from our facility managers, and create sort of standardize some of those processes. The other aspect of this group is to identify more GESA, Guaranteed Energy Savings Act projects, since this is a really big piece of our energy savings, a huge component of it, especially with budget shortfall years. This is a great tool to continue the energy savings projects. And then another item that we have is Management Directive 720.5. This was an energy conservation management directive that's not really sure. I think it's like probably a decade old now, maybe even older than that. Not quite sure what the age of it is, but it needs to be.
Yeah, the last one was 2008.
Okay, yeah. So it needs to be updated, and this group's been helping us update that management directive to include all of our modern energy management tools and strategies that we use, and sort of incorporate that into a directive for agencies to follow and make it a little bit more streamlined and understandable for agencies. So that's actually in the works, and we're hoping to see that come out in early 2021, if with any luck, through the approval processes. Next slide. And hopefully some of you have seen this. We have we put together this Guaranteed Energy Savings Act booklet, which basically it promotes the program. That's one of the purposes of it, is so that you all can see how we're using energy savings performance contracting successfully. But it's also a great tool for agency staff in general, because you have new employees, or you have employees that just aren't completely aware of the program. This booklet that we developed sort of gives the best practices and the step-by-step for how you get involved with a project with DGS. So we thought this was a pretty big win for us, and it's on the website, and you're welcome to take a look at it. Next slide. And again, here's the management directive that we're working through, and it's going to incorporate existing programs, like we had said. The GreenGov program we would like to incorporate into it, as far as use of energy cap and TRIREGA, which these are building tools that we have available. These are getting incorporated into this new management directive. Next slide. Okay, and so you can kind of see this is how the checklist measures for this category fall. I'm not going to get into too much of this. You can certainly look at this later. There's a lot of just individual technical items and things like that. And next slide. So we have the small agency focus group, and as I think Matt had said earlier, this agency is, they might be a small staff that are housed on one floor of a Commonwealth facility. They don't necessarily have a lot of staff resources, or lots of buildings, or lots of vehicles. And so this is a target group that, we're trying to focus on sustainability, team development, sharing strategies. There's a lot of opportunities here for messaging and awareness of their existing employees and outward to external partners. So these are things that we're trying to flesh out with our small agency work group. Next slide. And you can see here the program areas in particular. And the actual category, most of this falls under culture, which is in employees and people. And the program areas is employee engagement and public engagement. So there's lots of opportunities here that certain things we can do potentially with the small agencies, we can then scale up to some of the larger agencies. That's kind of our theory. seems to make sense because they can create messages and do more experimentation. It's a good place to do this. Next slide. So any questions on the last three focus groups?
So Mark and Matt, this is Lydia. Have you all done any baseline assessment under the, kind of to gauge people's not only attitudes towards sustainability, but actually actions and behaviors to kind of get a baseline?
I mean, to answer that, basically is what we have is not on an individual basis, but we do have that information on an agency basis as it's a pretty big section of the GreenGov certification checklist. So a lot of these measures, if I scroll back up, a lot of these measures are directly related to the sustainability. You can see that we have some areas to pick up.
Right.
As far as right.
But there's
but not deeper than that. Not on an individual. We have not surveyed on an individual basis. It's just by agency.
Yeah, I was going to say there's definitely room to opportunities to survey agencies and what they understand about sustainability. Those are all good points and good engagement opportunities for the staff itself, for sure.
Yeah, just to kind of gauge, because this, as I understand it, this survey, the certification checklist is completed like by one office within the agency, kind of looking around like, do they promote the use of stairs? So they would, visually see whether that's been promoted anywhere and answer accordingly. They are doing their own surveys to answer this questionnaire.
Yeah, they have different, they may survey, but they also may have group meetings with all their bureaus and individual offices and try to get the right people in the room.
Okay.
So there's probably 16 different models for different agencies.
Yep. Well, it is a challenge. We face the same thing. So.
Any other questions for those last three, and then we can move on to the last slide. Okay. Well, this is our last slide. And I just wanted to. We have a couple minutes left, and I just wanted to say that we are constantly trying to do and work with you all on public outreach and expand our outreach. A couple of things that we do is that we obviously publish our GreenGov checklists. We're trying to get into this annual report writing mode where you can see the transparency of our progress towards our goals. We have, of course, this new Penn State partnership for the sustainability webinar series. I think we did the first 6 over the course of the summer into the fall here, and I think that was successful, and we're looking to continue those partnerships moving forward. I think between us and the Sustainability Institute, I think there's a number of ways we can partner. One of the things that Matt and I have been working on especially over the course of this summer is we need help getting the word out about how the Commonwealth's leading by example. We've spent a lot of time, and I think rightfully so, trying to build these programs, but we recognize that we need to do more from a communication standpoint, and so we've been working with over the course of the summer our communications offices between the 3 agencies, DEP, DCNR, and DGS, to put together a communications plan. And one of the things we want to do and we are going to do, is put together a success story, GreenGov newsletter. And I think, we're trying to figure out exactly what this looks like. I think we might actually open it up to all of you to have input into it. So it can be because what we're trying to do is promote how the state as a whole is working towards the greenhouse gas reduction efforts in the executive order. It's something that we can all work on together. So I think we can potentially use our newsletter to highlight some of your successes as well. So there's a place, and Matt can show you where there's a place to sign up on the web. The other thing that we're looking to do is where you have opportunities for GreenGov to for us to get in newsletters or get retweeted or in social media, sort of promote opportunities to promote what we're doing. I think it would be super helpful and much appreciated, just to get the word out. It's a lot for our small office. So I guess that's my plea, to see if we can find ways to work together to do more to communicate as a state, where we should be from a communications on climate change and these goals.
Are you looking for input?
Yes. Yeah, please.
Okay, I'm new to your call. My name is Joe James. I'm a former 33-year economic development professional, now a green tech entrepreneur. A couple of suggestions. By the way, I spent about 8 years in Philadelphia in various senior positions related to economic development. So one of the things I would suggest is that you create a linkage with the state economic development function, whatever that is these days, and also with either state government or even federal government entities that are involved in supporting small business. And then lastly, because what you are doing relates to what I would call a bioeconomy, collaboration with the state ag department could also be helpful, because some of the solutions to the challenges of climate change are going to be ag related, and there would be tremendous amount of opportunity for collaboration between the state agencies, especially the ag department, in promoting a bioeconomy, which would also be very helpful in helping you meet your goal. So those would be my recommendations, and if I can help in any way, I'd be glad to do that.
Thanks, Joe. Those there are all great recommendations, and yeah, from the state ag standpoint, we definitely find more and more reasons to connect with our agricultural department for sure. But yeah, your other examples are spot on. I agree.
Yeah, one last recommendation. We are working with a substantial nonprofit in Philadelphia to partner with them to deliver the technologies that we have that would be beneficial at the community level. So I think another outreach function, and they were not aware of what you guys are doing. So creating a communication with some of the more substantial community-based and nonprofit organizations, I think would be extremely helpful, and also create additional partnerships, and also create an opportunity for funding that the nonprofits have and others of us may have, that we can join together and collaborate in a much more productive way.
Yep, great, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Mark and Matt, this is Paul. I'll just very quickly say thank you very much for a really good comprehensive overview of what you guys are doing. It's really inspiring to see so many government departments participating in sustainability. On the idea of continuing the collaboration, I'd like to say a couple of things. One is that we are very interested as Penn State and the Sustainability Institute to expand our partnership around webinars to all other aspects of communications, including the newsletter opportunity you mentioned, plus social media and other things. Although we don't have a communication specialist on board. Early next year, we should be able to rectify that, and we'd like to work on expanding our partnership in that direction. And second, that there are a number of networks that we are members of. For example, we helped to co-found the Sustainable Development Solutions Network in the US, and also we are part of the Pennsylvania Environmental Consortiums PERC, P-E-R-C, Environmental Resource Consortium. And we'd be happy to introduce those, but there are also some networks that are largely government body networks, which I think GreenGov Council would be ideally suited to join. So maybe we can have an offline discussion on opportunities to expand your communications and reach in those directions. Thank you so much again.
Yep, thanks, Paul. Agreed. I'm looking forward to it. We definitely should go offline and talk more about that.
Hey, Mark and Matt, Steve Krug again. Just an idea on your communications plan. Earth Day is a huge event, and you get a lot of traction because if you can coordinate with Earth Day on social media, it's just a phenomenal mechanism for spreading the word about GreenGov. If you can ride the coattails of Earth Day, I would key on that. You should visit earthday.org and see if there aren't some tools there that you could make use of. And a deadline is always a good thing to have. So Earth Day is always a good deadline.
Good point. Yeah, I think we may have almost missed it last year in the mix, but we definitely need to program Earth Day for sure. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? So, any other comments or questions? We are 7 minutes over. I don't want to keep you longer than you have to. But I appreciate everyone's time today.
And as mentioned, this presentation will be available on the GreenGov website for view and reference. Thanks everybody for attending.
Yep, thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.